some inventive guy rented an airplane, filled the airplane with small bears, and threw out all these bears coming down from the sky. My name is Lars Olofsson, and I've been a management consultant and an international management consultant since 1990. And I'm going to talk to you and tell you a little about my history with Belarus, Vitryssland, a couple of years ago, some 10 years ago. But before I start, you see in the background some very, very famous logos from some very successful businesses. And I want to talk to you 1 minute about these very, very successful companies. Because there isn't one single successful company existing today that hasn't been once in a while during their history, been on the brink of being a complete failure. It was just a matter of days, in some cases hours, before they went into bankruptcy and had a major failure. Not one single of these companies haven't been in that situation. And what's more interesting is that what happened on those occasions, it could go this way or another way, was not due to a very, very good, skilled management or some smart people. It was some happy accidentals, some lucky circumstances that made them successful instead of doing a failure. More or less everyone. So being a failure is not a question about being successful, being very smart, having a very, very one-off business concept. I think you should remember, or every one of those. So let me tell you a little bit about Belarus. In the beginning of 2008, I was invited by the Swedish Foreign Office to take part of a so-called trade delegation to Belarus. And I've been on a number of different kind of trade delegations to Ukraine, to Moldavia, to China, and so on. So this wasn't something new to go to Belarus. My mission was to find out if I could use my knowledge and working methods to help the government, the state-owned companies in Belarus. Because Belarus is still a dictatorship, the last dictatorship in Europe. When Soviet Union was split up in the late 80s, in the beginning of the 20s, more or less all the countries went into being democracies, to have a multi-policy and political system. But Belarus just continued with the Soviet Union organization, and still is. So everyone, all the companies, is owned by the state. So my mission was to find out, could I help these companies? So within a time period of half a year, I have discussions with different kind of ministers, different kind of government officials, and so on. And in the summer of 2008, we signed a kind of agreement. Now we're going to start the business. And it was something like 25 million annual business. Then it came to a general election in the end of the summer 2008. And the first thing happened was that the Swedish ambassador to Belarus in Minsk, he had some connections with some opposition groups in Belarus. And that was spotted by the government. The second thing that happened was that with a parachute on, with some message about democracy and so on, flew over Minsk and threw out all these bears coming down from the sky with messages about democracy and so on. And the guy in charge, Mr. Lukashenko, who is the president of Belarus, who is best buddy then with Omar Gaddafi, Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran, and Kim Jong-il in North Korea. That was his best buddy. He just went bananas about this. And in the middle of this, the Swedish ambassador was expelled. He was declared persona non grata. He had 48 hours to leave the country. 2 days after, the government closed down the Swedish embassy. All the 15 people on the embassy staff had to leave the country within 24 hours. And in the middle of this, I came back to Minsk to start my business. And I was more or less like someone with the plague, because more or less everyone who I have had contact with didn't want to have any kind of to do with me. I was completely, and this guy was my enemy, Mr. Lukashenko. So I lost the business of 25 million per year. I had invested in this startup about 6 million Swedish kronor from my own pockets. And I had to go back with nothing. So that was my story. And the lesson learned is that if you are mixing politics and business, that's a lethal combo. And you should always have, I should always had a plan B. And I should have learned to look what happened the last time they had a general election, because there was some trouble at that time as well, 2006.